Uncle Mark,
Yes.
I was watching my favorite modern TV show again last night.
Your favorite modern TV show?
My
Doug?
favorite up to date TV. My favorite
Contemporary,
relevant
contemporary teleplay drama.
Yes.
Tell me, what is that?
Well, you know, the X-Files. and the motto of that show, of course, is "I want to believe."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to believe that show holds up over time.
Well, you know, it's funny. Remember, it had such a distinct look, you know, and it was always that kind of moist, hazy, you know, and I was like, oh, it's such a cool look. I wonder why it's like that. And then I did a movie in Vancouver, and I'm like, oh, fuck, that's why. Oh, my God, it's always gray.
I just love that you called a show moist.
Well, and that's actually the motto of Vancouver is moist and hazy.
Moist and hazy, and heroin. No, I love Vancouver. It's awesome.
Well, anyway, I think Uncle Dan wants to talk to us about that, about belief.
Yeah. Well, look, we talk a lot on this show about how stupid most religions are. We go into detail about logical inconsistencies.
They're not all stupid, Dan. Some are dumb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. Sorry. Point of order.
Distinction without a difference. I like it.
Sure.
So we talk about logical inconsistencies. We talk about fallacious thinking, disconnections from reality. These are all the hallmarks of pretty much all the religious traditions. Mm-hmm. Week after week, we provide good reasons why people should run screaming from religion. It's kind of our thing. The problem is that we don't offer much in the way of what to run to. We just say, look at how stupid all the stuff we were raised to believe is. That's a terrible foundation for a personal ethos. You agree? Great! Well, good luck. Enjoy your existential crisis. And we whistle our way down the path to next week's show. Because just negating the stupidity of religion isn't the same as helping someone to build a new system of codes and moral dictates to replace the old bad ones. I don't know about your stories, but when I left religion, I didn't have anyone to guide me anymore. I took some philosophy classes in college, which helped me learn about logic and reason and taught me how to see fallacious thinking to some degree. But as I stepped out into the religious framework of my youth, I had no help in figuring out what to step into.
Yeah, same.
The truth is, I didn't really understand that was a thing I needed to do. I spent years just kind of floating around. I knew a bunch of things I didn't believe anymore, but it's not like I started down the path of purposefully and consciously examining what I did or should believe. Even if I had wanted to, I wouldn't have known how to do that. I had no role models or people around me who had been there who could guide me. So, uncles, I think it's time to ante up and put some thought into this.
No.
Oh, okay. Show's over.
Yeah. It's a short segment.
Yeah. No, look, we're encouraging people to abandon the institution that was the ostensible basis for their whole moral outlook, the foundation of their worldview. The least we can do is provide a small primer on how to BYOB, build your own belief system. And I do mean build your own. What I don't want to do is be like all of the religions out there and tell people what they should believe. And that may be a good first lesson. Ditch the concept of prepackaged belief systems.
Yeah.
Only you get to decide what your beliefs are. Sure, you should listen to smart people about what they believe and thoughtfully consider whether you want to adopt some or all of what you're hearing.
We can recommend some other podcasts for that if you like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. Great. I like Joel Osteen as much as the next guy. But you have a veto for all of it. And it's a line item veto at that. You can totally pick and choose which parts of various beliefs you want to buy into. Don't ever let anybody tell you that if you believe X and Y, you have to believe Z. Mm-hmm. You're done letting others dictate what is and isn't important. That's over now. That said, you don't have to do it on your own. You can seek out wisdom, read books, watch YouTube videos, go to lectures or debates or whatever. Just Listen for what sounds right to you and what sounds like bullshit, and then, and this is also important, ask why that is. Does it seem like bullshit because it's bad thinking, or is it possible that it sounds like bullshit because it makes you feel something that you're not comfortable feeling? Those are very different things. So, with those in mind, I thought that we could demonstrate the process a little bit by looking at some philosophies and concepts and ask ourselves just what we think of them. Whether they ring true to us or whether we bounce off of them and why. You guys game for that?
Yeah,
Sure.
Good, because otherwise my whole segment is ruined. Well, I thought I'd start with some fun ones. I wanted to go back to our origin stories, Mormonism. Well, we can all quickly agree that the story of a group of enterprising ancient Jews who crossed the ocean and landed in America only to discover that they, like the Zartan G.I. Joe of my youth, change color for no reason.
Oh, I love Zartan!
Right?
I don't remember Zartan. Did he change
my
colors?
God.
Was he like photochromatic? Like he changed
Yeah,
color?
yeah,
in the
yeah.
light?
If you put him in the sun, he would turn blue,
But-
and then if you put him in water,
Well, if
he'd
you put Uncle Doug in the sun for 5 minutes, he turns red like a lobster. So
That's
Believe
true.
me, yeah, I did some yard work yesterday, and I'm feeling it today. No, Zarmak, he was temperature sensitive,
yeah,
so you could like squeeze him, and then he'd have almost like stripes on him.
well, I
it was
believe in
amazing,
him.
right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
So put that in the yes column.
exactly. But we can all agree that, like that other Mormon stuff, the story of Nephi and Lehi and everything is stupid and can be dismissed out of hand.
Yeah.
But as we've discussed many times, even though the Book of Mormon claims to be the foundational text of Mormonism, it is mystifyingly unrelated to the practices and beliefs of the religion.
Sure enough.
Yeah.
So, we're going to look at a few of the Mormon Articles of Faith.
Oh,
These are
The
13
big 13.
Yep, they're statements of belief carefully crafted by the founder and original prophet, seer, and wife hoarder of the Mormon Church to tell the world.
Wife, I've never heard the term wife hoarder before. It's beautiful.
This is to tell the world what the Mormons are all about. So, we can ignore a bunch of them because they're just about Jesus and his dad and their ghost friend. And some are about, how magic and prophety this church is. But some of them may be more applicable to us and might be worth our consideration. So we're gonna look at a couple of them.
Why not?
We're just gonna examine two things. First, I think it'll be fun for us to examine, do Mormons actually believe what they say they do?
they don't.
And then the second, is there anything in there that could be of benefit to us? This is a figuring out what is baby and what is bathwater exercise. So, I'm going to start with number 11 in the top 13 things that Mormons believe, which is, quote, "We claim the privilege of worshiping Almighty God according to the dictates of our own conscience, and allow all men the same privilege. Let them worship how, where, or what they may." Now, the first question to me is, do Mormons really believe that? Because I've seen how they respond when you talk about Satan worshipers or whatever, and I don't think that they're cool with everybody
I
having
think
the same privilege.
you scratched out the last line of that, which was "until we're in charge."
Yeah,
Right.
Look, I would be more apt to believe the live and let live sentiment of that from a group that didn't have 60,000 teenagers out in the world bugging people to worship the way they do.
Right.
So, I mean, at best they're 50% on that one.
Well,
Right.
and believe me, they get in the way of my worship of my deity, whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you live in Utah, see how much they let you do that.
Yeah,
worship.
the liquor stores are closed on Sunday. Their big mall is closed on Sunday. They're not really so much about you do you, in my opinion.
No.
So,
Right.
yeah.
But I would say, to a large extent, are about you do you. But my question is, where do you guys fall on the idea of everybody should be allowed to worship whatever they want, wherever they want, however they want?
I feel like this might be a trap, but
That's
I'm I'm pretty firm on that. I mean, and you know, worship, I guess, needs to kind of be fleshed out a little bit, and
Right.
and there need to be obvious parameters on when what I believe and how I worship infringes on someone else and what they believe and how they quote unquote worship. But you know, if we're going to demand that we have the right to be free from religion, we have to allow for people to be shackled by it.
Yeah,
Right?
I think in the way that in any modern civilization that freedom is a regulated commodity. I think sure, absolutely you should be able to worship how and when and what you want, but it should be regulated as much as my freedom is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There need to be some fucking guardrails for the things that inevitably happen in religion, which is abuse of children, abuse of women, intolerance spilling over, outside the pews into the rest of into my world. So, as long as everybody's basically safe, and there are those kind of protections, then I think knock yourself out.
But there are dragons, though, right? Like, obviously, this isn't as simple as it sounds. What about people who don't believe that their children should be vaccinated or
Right?
Well,
or
that's
get
what I mean by
medicine?
by regulation, right?
Right.
There are limits that you don't own your children, and at some point they're going to be adults, and we don't want either children or adults dying of measles. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a great way of looking at this. I mean, sort of a good example of why this process is important, because you have to, when you're first examining it, it might be obvious to say, yeah, let everybody worship as they want, but then you read a story about people who let their child die because they didn't believe in taking them to the doctor, they believed in prayer instead, and that's when we have to draw some lines.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's a nice sort of lesson learned in that about nothing is black and white in the real world.
Yeah.
Nothing is. You can't draw hard lines on almost anything.
Right.
So let's move on to Article 13. This one's the long one, so buckle in. We believe in being honest, true, chaste, benevolent, virtuous, and in doing good to all men. Indeed, we may say that we follow the admonition of Paul. We believe all things, we hope all things, we have endured many things, and hope to be able to endure all things. If there is anything virtuous, lovely, or of good report, or praiseworthy, we seek after these things.
Okay.
What the fuck does that mean?
I know.
Yeah.
And couldn't
We believe all things. We seek all things.
Yeah, we hope all things. What?
Well, and
what are you talking about?
that list of virtues also included benevolent, which encompasses all those virtues.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And also, obviously, he could have gone on to 14 and 15, but because he was a lazy fuck, 13 is a catch-all. It's like everything
Yes.
that isn't in the first 12 is in this one, right?
And we like all the things that are nice.
I mean,
Well,
great.
But there are some little landmines in there.
Yeah.
The word chaste comes up, which I think is interesting, especially for a man who had 30-something wives.
I think it referred to him chasing women.
Yeah. Oh, he just misspelled it.
That's right.
It's just CHASED is how he meant to spell it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Again, I read this and walk away from the black and white thinking. I look at words like honest, and I'm like, yes, I believe deeply in personal honesty, but there's lots of times when lying is a good choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it can be.
If somebody shows you their baby and says, "Don't you think she's beautiful?" I don't care what you actually think.
And
you
as-
say yes.
As you're reaching for the vial of holy water in your pocket.
Right. Yeah. If your friend shows you her new engagement ring and says, "What do you think?" You love it. The answer is you love it.
Yeah. If your child draws a picture and wants you to put it on the fridge, but it's a piece of shit,
Yeah.
right? It's probably best to lie about it. Oh,
Yeah.
look. Is that a cat's butt? Oh. No, that's Grandma. Great. Going on the fridge.
Great. Yeah, she'll love that.
Yeah.
I'll definitely tell her about it for sure.
Well, I also, though, there's, I don't want to just pick on Mormons, just to do that. But those are
No,
all.
go ahead. That's fine.
There's standards in there, that honesty. This show basically exists to chronicle the myriad dishonesties of the Mormon Church.
Yeah.
Right? Like, everything from lying about $100 billion to lying about a goddamn rock in a hat.
Yeah.
The whole church is an enterprise in dishonesty. So
I just on that note, I just finished Joanna Brooks' Mormonism and White Supremacy. Her book I highly, highly, highly recommend to anybody who's interested in subtopic of Mormonism. But she has a whole, and she's a Mormon, right. And she has a whole segment about the habit that Mormons have called lying for the Lord. Yeah. That is so ingrained they sometimes don't even know they're doing it.
Exactly.
Right? Because of the defensive crouch they've convinced themselves they've been in their entire existence, So yeah, I mean, dishonesty is, and it's not just Mormonism, but it is definitely endemic in the Mormon hierarchy and structure.
And I think, Dan, to your point, is that a virtuous thing to strive for? Yes, absolutely. But I can't help but find it hypocritical, in this context, that's something the Mormons hold up as one of their banners of their faith.
After youth, after being like 12 or 13, I never heard discussion of the 13 Articles ever again.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't have them all written here, but I'm going to pull them up just because when I was going through them, I was actually very surprised to see a couple of them that I hadn't thought about since childhood.
Well, the second or third one is, we don't believe that men are punished for Adam's transgressions,
right,
or the sins of the father. And then, of course, there was the November policy where they insisted that the children of gay couples were to be punished for their parents' transgressions.
Right,
exactly,
absolutely.
So I don't think they live by a single one of these.
I like the idea. I was looking at them and I got to Article 7 and how many Mormons do you think believe in the gift of tongues?
Older ones. I think much, much older ones do because we talked about the Adamic language before, right?
Right.
Well, I think that's what they call French kissing at BYU.
Well, it's a theoretical thing. They've theorized that's a thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, there you go. I think it's just helpful to sort of reframe what you were raised with and ask some real questions about it.
Sure.
So I'm going to move on now, though, to because look, we've done this exercise before on this show. We've looked at the Ten Commandments several times. And we, going all the way back to episode 17. And in episode 67, Mark, you took us on a really lovely takedown of the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah.
And sins in general is an interesting concept. So, it's worth asking yourself if you even believe in the concept of a sin.
Sure.
Which I actually vacillate on.
Yeah.
But let's jump away from the Abrahamic religions and plop ourselves down in Asia. A lot of folks who leave dogmatic religions seek out Eastern thought as a possible replacement, so I thought we'd look at the 3 universal truths of Buddhism. Now, Buddha lived in the 6th century BCE, so his shit has been worked and twisted and interpreted a lot.
Yeah.
There are some big disagreements over what these are, what they mean, and even if there are 3 of them. But for the sake of this, we'll just use 3 that I found on some website.
Yes.
Don't at me.
It's as good as any other.
Yeah, the beauty of this process is that the authenticity or origin of the ideas don't matter. What matters is the ideas themselves and whether we find merit in it. So, I'll just read all 3 of these and we can just discuss them as a whole. 1, everything in life is impermanent and always changing. 2, because nothing is permanent, a life based on possessing things or persons doesn't make you happy. And 3, there is no eternal, unchanging soul, and self is just a collection of changing characteristics or attributes.
Well, I would say that hits much closer to the truth of the mark than any or all of the 13 Articles of Faith.
Okay.
Right?
I think I definitely believe in impermanence and change.
Yeah.
That's certainly something that has been real in my life.
Yeah, and that's definitely true. The universe will eventually die and everything on it and in it.
Well, and I don't know if, it depends on who you ask whether owning people makes you happy and whether you live above or below the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah. And, my overarching theory of a lot of Eastern religions is that these were philosophies cooked up to tell the masses of people who would never have anything, it's better not to have anything, right? Yeah. And so I think it's a pretty poisonous stew that's dressed up as something very wise and beautiful. Yes, life is impermanent. Yes, just the pursuit of materialism at the expense of everything else in life is can be an empty pursuit. But tell people who don't have any things that it's wrong to have things.
Right.
You know what I mean? Things are of an enormous benefit in this life.
Yeah.
Like houses and food and, a computer and electric. Yeah. Like, it's crazy.
You try to tell some of my friends that a PlayStation doesn't make you happy. It can.
Right.
There's no reason why it shouldn't. And, now the thing is that I know a lot of people who I have seen and met and talked to, a lot of people who have supplanted a pursuit of personal fulfillment with the pursuit of distraction. And I think maybe that's part of what this is getting at, is the idea that, if you buy the RV and the four-wheelers and the boat and the this and the that, you can distract yourself and never have to actually look inward, ever. You can just sort of keep yourself going fast and, get some adrenaline pumping that way, and you'll never have to, think about what brings meaning to your life.
Well, yeah, I think that's. I think the naked avarice or the collection of things it will never lead to fulfillment, and I think that's true. I think we need to try and live for bigger things than that. But to your point, Uncle Mark, you kind of need to have a house or a place to
right.
sleep.
And look, a boat can be a lot of fucking fun, and fun is fulfillment, right? Enjoyment of life, being out on the lake, or taking your RV on some adventure, that's fulfillment. I don't, is the point the RV or what the RV can do for you, right?
Right.
And what the experiences it provides for you. And yes, there are people, look at who runs the country right now, for whom just the acquisition for the sake of acquisition is what fills the hole in the center of their empty being.
Right.
But, I don't know. I think there's joy in things. So I don't know. I don't really have a lot of love for Buddhism. I think it's a scam. And I think that in the West, it's been cycled into this kind of unquestionable wisdom. And,
right.
I'm just kind of over that shit, because, you don't have to really dig very deep to see that there is a tremendous amount of violence and bullshit in Buddhist countries, just like there is in everywhere else.
True that.
Yeah.
There you go. Interesting. All right. As a final contrast, I want to discuss a few of the 7 tenets of the Satanic Temple.
Oh, yes.
The nice thing about these is that, in religious terms, they're bleeding edge recent.
Yeah.
They were developed by a group of non-theists and were written as a direct reaction against the stupidity of dogmatic religions like Christianity.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about a couple of these. So the first one is, one should strive to act with compassion and empathy toward all creatures in accordance with reason.
Love it.
It's interesting, right? That in accordance with reason does seem like a bit of an out. Mm-hmm. It feels like a bit of a bail when it comes to because I think they're trying to. I think half of what they're doing with all of these is leaving room for personal interpretation.
Yeah, it's
So
it's not absolutist.
Right. So that's interesting.
Like
Yeah,
the
to that
Jane's,
point-
the Jane's position would be absolutist.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, to that point, like, I kind of like the fact that there's an escape hatch on the back end.
Right.
Because if you were to take what the first half of that is to its fullest extent, you would end up being a Jane. You would have to gingerly sweep the ground before you so as not to step on any insects, etc. Right? Like,
Right.
it's a nuanced position to say that it can be nuanced.
Yeah.
Right.
That there can be gray.
And that the thinking people can disagree on it.
Right. And it leans more towards ethics than it does towards dogma.
Great. Let's
Yeah.
move on to another one. Here's this one I found interesting. This is their second tenet. The struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions. So in one tenet, they have sort of said that that there's an overarching concept that is more important than laws and institutions. So they've kind of downgraded the law. And then I don't know, the word justice hangs up for me. I have a hang up with that because first of all, everyone defines it differently. You know what I mean? When you see all the pictures of, justice for this person or justice for that person, and nobody knows what's actually being called for in those. I don't know what justice is. Do you guys have a strong sense of
I
what
think
you
what
think
they're
justice
saying is that there are unjust laws, and we had Jim Crow laws, and we had
Right.
blue laws, and we had just being gay was illegal. Those were unjust, right? And so the law does not always equal justice, and clearly we're seeing that in 2020 in America. So I think I quite agree with their sentiment there that justice you must never think that it stops when something is made into a law, that there's always somebody on the losing end of the struggle, and so the struggle must continue. And I think that's great.
Well, yeah.
So you're talking about a sense of institutional justice or a sense of sort of societal justice, which
Yeah.
I actually really like. But they use the word justice and the struggle for justice, and I think that can be confusing when we start to get to an individual place where, someone has been wronged, and there's a struggle for justice for them, specifically, and what that looks like. I think that's where it gets a little murkier in my mind, I guess. But yeah, I think I think that it's an interesting. I think it's definitely. You're absolutely right that what this is. The larger thing that this is referring to is justice in the sense of equity and equality.
Yeah, and fairness.
But I think it's interesting that they didn't use those words.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. I like this one. This one's an interesting one. So this one's because I wanted to get to some that are about sort of personal ethos or something that's not a grand thing but is personal. So their number 6 is people are fallible. If one makes a mistake, one should do one's best to rectify it and to resolve any harm that might have been caused.
I think it's great.
All right, yeah,
Yeah.
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what the actual action is that causes that rectification? There's some open-ended things there. And also there's the question of what is meant by a mistake. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of things that are that didn't work out great.
Yeah.
But and happened because of fallibility, but may not need a restitution.
Yeah, it's a question of intention because people do bad things fully intentionally sometimes rather than
Right.
by accident. But maybe it's just a poor turn of phrase, but I think it's a very nice notion that you're going to fuck up, and to me that says you're going to fuck up and it's okay, right?
Yeah.
It's okay as long as you understand you did it, and then you try to set right what damage you did, which you might not be able to do, but it's it's about the person it's about both people on each end of that situation, right?
Yeah.
They may not forgive you, they may not let you off the hook, but you have done what you could to try to fix it.
It's also a fascinating contrast with the Christian thought of human fallibility, which is that we are all broken and somehow we owe something to God because of that. Or somehow that's, like God made us broken. We are fallen creatures a lot of the time. You hear that phrasing or whatever. But it doesn't but the Christian concept of it doesn't turn to personal responsibility so much as it turns to stop being bad,
right,
or you'll go to hell.
The born sick and commanded to be well fallacy, right? And no, I like this because it is about interpersonal relationships, and God doesn't enter into it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about like watch yourself, figure out what you've done well or badly, and then right yourself on the path.
Yeah. And it's also kind of up to you to know when you've done that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like their last tenet, which is about the other tenets. So that's kind of fun. Which is every tenet is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility in action and thought. The spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word. Which to me says, look, if any of these end up making you do something stupid or mean or unwise, ignore them and do the wise or compassionate thing instead.
Yeah. Well, that's why that's what's so great about it is these are not commandments.
Right.
Right. This is not dogmatic. This is like, here's a guide for living an ethical life. A simple, basic first step in living an ethical life.
It's our best shot at it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make here is that we all have to sort of take our best shot at establishing a system of personal ethics and morals. Mm-hmm. So, that this is all part of the journey of leaving religion is determining what's important to you. What are your boundaries? What are your morals? And what ethics are going to dominate your personal code?
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's enough to just ditch bad thinking and foolish concepts. I think you got to figure out, what do you believe?
Yeah, you still have to operate in the world after you've left whatever garbage you left behind.
Yeah, and it's not just about sort of having beliefs, but there's and I don't want it to think of it in terms of a sort of rigid, unchanging set of doctrines that you establish for yourself. But it's good to know what you're about in a way that, like, when you're in trouble or when you're in a time of deep stress, you'll have something to grab onto.
Yeah.
Because in those really difficult moments, having something to hold on to can make all the difference.
Yeah, you will be tested. So when push comes to shove, what are you willing and not willing to do? And what kind of person are you willing and not willing to be? And a lot of times we don't know it until we are tested.
Yeah.
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 So go out there and get tested, I guess.
Get tested and get a cream and get rid of it.
Yeah.
So it's just sort of a push toward that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe we'll come back with something more useful as we get feedback or whatever.
Yeah. Tell us what you're willing and not willing to do. And be explicit. Be graphic.
Uncle Mark reads all of the emails, so make sure that you are.
Yeah. What I need is more nightmares, so just fill up my head.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, let's move on.
Yeah.